to test Philip on this. On what? On his faith in God. On his faith in Jesus. On his knowledge of who Jesus is. He's been following Jesus all this time. What does he know about Jesus? What is his conviction about Jesus? You've been following in this church, coming to this church. What is your conviction about Jesus? What is your conviction about this whole business called church? What is your conviction about giving on the plate? What is your conviction about prayer? What is your conviction about reading the Bible? What is your conviction about going in fellowship with fellow Christians? Because if your conviction is not strong, you're not going to be there. You see, he wants to test Philip where he is. You see, it's important to know where you are in your journey with God. Sometimes when I think of of the sermon for Sunday, I always think, where is this church now, Lord? Where are these people now? Because I'm not going to give you something like the Bible said, that like Apostle Paul said, I'm not going to feed you with the what? Steak. When you're babies, you're going to have a heartburn, run to what? ER or IR? Yeah, ER. Because you're not able to do it. That's why you only give the right food to the right, where people are. So here we are. Jesus knew where Philip is. But does Philip know where he is in his knowledge of Jesus? God always knows everything, right? The problem is we don't know ourselves. So this is a test, not for Jesus to find out what Philip's going to do. He already knew what Philip would say. He already knew where Philip is. But Philip needs to know about himself. This is a test to show Philip and the rest of the disciples of where they are in their knowledge of who Jesus is. They've been following this. They have committed to leave their what? Their business behind, their fishing business, they committed to follow him all the way. The question is, where are they now in their understanding of and their knowledge of this Jesus? And that's why we come here to this church. How long? How many years? I've been a Christian for how many years? This lady was 3 years. Now, what is your conviction about Jesus up to this time? Do you still hang on to so many other things? Oh, I have Jesus, but I have to get this too. Well, that means you don't have Jesus 100%. You see, it's important to know where you are. It's important to know where your children are. Because if you don't know where they are, you can be doing something that is totally wrong. And then later on you cry. And it was all your fault because you have not done the right thing. You have not evaluated your kids, their primary needs and so on. Now, every now and then we need to check where we are in our walk with God and Jesus. God does this by putting us to test. What kind of tests are going through right now? A week ago, this month in your life. You see, many of our problems, God allows us to experience them. They were not designed to ruin your life, to make you miserable. They were just designed to test you. So that you'll know your intentions. God's intention for putting you in a test or problems or dilemma is not to destroy your life. No, it's there to make you know where you are, who you are, and who is God in your life. To test your faith. To find out your answer. Philip readily made an answer. We have nothing to offer these people. Not enough. And if God put you in a test, do you think we'll pass it? You see, God already knew what your answer is. And God knew whether you can pass it. One thing good about this is that God will not leave you alone during the time of testing. That's the good news about it. When God puts you in a test, He's not going to leave you alone and wrestle with yourself alone, trying to find solution to your problem. He's always there for you. That's the goodness of being with God The third intention is to demonstrate His creative power. This event, Jesus, somebody said that this is the second time Jesus demonstrated His creative power. Do you know that only God can create? We see this table here in front. This was made. This was not created really. Create out of nothing or to create something non-existent. Only God can do that. But this used to be a tree. You know, this thing here, it used to be a tree. But it was made into a podium. You're sitting on these benches. There used to be a tree there. Someone cut them, turn it into wood, and make them into a chair. You can do that. Man has the gift of doing that. But to create a tree, only God can do that. And that's why when they ask him to supply the wine in the wedding party, they run out of wine. Well, you either buy wine or get more grapes and trample and turn to wine. Oh, but they don't have time for that. They want wine right away. And you know the rest of the story, right? He turned the water into wine. You see, only God can do that. He can create something out of nothing. Only God can do that. That's His first miracle. And this is the second one. He created more bread and more fish out of those 5 and 2. See, this is the second time somebody said that He demonstrated His power as the creator of this universe. You see, sometimes God has to demonstrate it to you to increase your faith. You people say, Lord, increase my faith. Well, you better understand what you're praying. Because God will answer your prayer. Only He will answer it in some way sometimes you don't like. One of His disciples, here, so verse 8, one of His disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to Him, see, they have a problem, right? Well, someone come up and with this something to show Jesus. There is a lad here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But then again, Andrew says, but what are these for so many people? Meaning to say, that's almost nothing. Even if they got tikukurut, that would be enough for like 15,000, 20,000 people. Jesus said, have people sit down. Now there was much grass in the place, so men sat down in number about 5,000. Jesus then took the loaves, and having given thanks, He distributed to those who were seated, likewise also the fish, as much as they wanted. When they were filled, He said to His disciples, gather up the leftover fragments so that nothing will be lost. I like this story. The situation was a dire situation for the disciples. Not enough bread for this many people. But to Jesus, this is not a dire situation. To God, this is nothing. This is rather an opportunity to demonstrate the creative power of Jesus, the Son of God, right there in your midst. You know that your problem is an opportunity to demonstrate the power of God in your life?
Yes.
Yes. God allows problems and dilemma just so to answer your prayer, increase my faith. Because your faith is small. Well, God said, I'm going to give you something that nobody can, the doctors have no answer, the herbalists have no answer. But you know what? I will show you. I have the answer. Because that's the territory of God. This is an opportunity. That's why when I come to a problem like that, I have only to look at this way. This could make me bitter, and make me lose my peace and joy and everything. Or I can look to God that this is a time where I will see another miracle from God. See, it's how you see it that way. To Andrew and Philip and the rest of them, oh, this is a no-way situation. But to God, this is a great opportunity to give God the glory. You know, God is just looking for people and situations like this. And then, you see, what did Jesus say? Make the people sit down. Sometimes that's all God would like you to do. You have a problem? Why don't you sit down and let me do the answer to your problem? Why don't you sit down in church and listen to what I have to say? Why don't you sit down in the Bible study so that you'll hear the testimonies of people who have problems worse than you have? See, why don't you sit down in front of your Bible and read some verses? Maybe God will speak to you then. Why don't you sit down and have a word of prayer between God so He can tell you you have no problem? Because what? Your problem is not yours, it's God's problem. You see, the problem is sometimes we get too busy trying to solve our problems. So we put more priority there instead of prioritizing God. See, God is already in their midst. Jesus is God. And yet they have big problem. So here it is. Jesus just says, just make them sit down. And then He thanked God for what? For the bread and the fish. Oh, but He also thanked God for the opportunity to show and reveal Himself to them. That He is not just one of them, mere, ordinary, mortal man, but rather what He always claimed to be, the Son of God, with the power of God. This is not the last time or the first time that Jesus thanked God. Remember when they encountered that man who was blind, and the disciple says, Lord, who is at fault here? Why is he blind? What is him or his parents? And Jesus said, neither. It's not his fault. It's not his parents' fault. It is so that you may see the power of God. You see, sometimes like that. You just see it from God's point of view, not your point of view. You see, he thanked God. It's God's intention to reveal Himself during these times of testing and dilemma and problem. And then we also have another intention of God. You know that God has a lot of intentions in your life and mine. Here's another intention of God. It says, as many as they wanted. Wow! You know that God is a generous God. As many, it's just thousands of people, just get enough. No, Jesus said, just make them get as many as they wanted. I brought some persimmon, by the way, there in the box. It's not as many as you wanted. Because it's not going to fit, give everybody if you take half of them. I'm not Jesus, you take. There's a big difference. If I'm Jesus, I would tell you, get as many as you want. Because you cannot empty that box. Oh, but I'm not Jesus, so don't apply what you... This is Jesus, eh? So make sure you bring some persimmon, okay? Because Brother Ed and I like persimmon picking. Here, Jesus. He told His disciples, make sure you let them get as many as they want. Would you like to be a recipient from God? Because when you ask people, they just enough, okay? Oh, but when you come to God, He can give you as many as you want. Now, it's not always like that, but He can be generous to the limit. Ooh, I like to know God. Oh, I enjoy walking with God and knowing Him more and more. That's why, what did Paul say? Oh, that I might know Him. Wow, there's so much more we don't know about Him. Oh, like, someone told me, my wife said, don't say that to the church. Why? Because I have a secret. I'm not going to tell it to you. My wife said, don't say it. You'll know it soon. You see, God is a generous God. The more I walk with Him, the more I see He's very generous. Yeah. Wow. If you don't know that yet, you need to come to church every Sunday. You need to pray, you need to read the Bible. You need to know Him more and more. Do you know Him more? I already know Him, but that's yesterday. That's a year ago. But do you know Him that you don't know yet? Because He wants to reveal Himself in a new way. It's the intention of God, again, in this part, to use every opportunity to show His power and reveal Himself. You see? Every opportunity. And then we have the intention to use everything and everyone. Verse 12 to 13. When they were filled, he said to his disciples, "Gather up the leftover fragments so that nothing will be lost." So they gathered them up and filled 12 baskets with fragments from the 5 barley loaves which were left over by those who had eaten. You see, it's the intention of God to use even a boy and his lunch. A boy and his lunch. This boy ran to that crowd, maybe, and his mama probably said, hey, come here, come back. I have something for you to bring just in case that preacher prays too long. Preacher Jesus prays too long. Make sure you got something to eat. You know, something. Don't worry about that. We got plenty of food. That's why we have food every Sunday, because preacher may preach too long. So the boy ran. He got a lunch, and Andrew borrowed his lunch and bring it to Jesus. There is a lad here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fishes. You see, God can use everyone, no matter how small. Here in this story, he didn't have to bring to get the lunch for the whole family. No, a boy's lunch is good enough. You see, God could not care less what you have. He can use it for his glory.